that I was half through. And so the other half is going to be next Friday night. Otherwise, it just be pretty amazing. So, how gratitude looks. Remember last week I mentioned that you've heard people say, we need to have an attitude of gratitude. And my sense was that we really needed to do more than have an attitude of gratitude. We need to have action. That attitude of gratitude and thankfulness needs to produce in us a change in how we live our lives and what we do. So let's look at the passage from Matthew chapter 14, verses 14 through 21, page 1278. By the way, if you would like, we have several of these journey Bibles. You're welcome to take 1, 2 home with you. We have plenty. We bought 8 cakes, and they are for you if you would like to have one. We'd be glad to give you one. And I will do what I usually do, and that is as I read this passage, I'll make a few brief comments on it, and then we will look at it in a little bit more depth after the break. When Jesus heard what had happened, he withdrew by boat privately to a solitary place. And you recall that Jesus did that often before engaging in public ministry. He would go to be by himself, actually go to be with God in, we'll call it semi-private, he and God, and then they would go and where Jesus would minister in a public setting. Hearing of this, the crowds followed him on foot from the town. When Jesus landed and saw a large crowd, he had compassion on them and healed their sick. As evening approached, the disciples came to him and said, "This is a remote place. It's already getting late, and there are no 7-Elevens nearby." This is one of 2 big miracles of feeding the masses. This one, he fed 5,000, and another one, he fed 4,000. And so we're going to focus on this one tonight. Send the crowds away so they can go to the villages and buy themselves some food. Jesus replied, "They do not need to go away. You give them something to eat." And again, similar to last week, remember he asked Peter, "Who do people say I am?" And then he asked Peter, "Who do you say I am?" Here they went from a kind of a general cosmic problem to Jesus saying, "You need to do something about it. You give them something to eat." And notice the disciples' response. We have here only 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish. Only. Just. In other words, look at the limitations that we have here. There are 2 basic ways of looking at the world. The one is we look at the world with an assumption of scarcity. There's not enough to go around. We need to get ours. The other way of looking at life is through the lenses of the kingdom of God, and that is through the eyes of abundance. There's more than enough to go around. It's not a zero-sum game where if I get more, you're going to have less. So they were operating under that model of scarcity. We have here only 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish. They answered. Jesus said, "Bring them to me." And he directed the people to sit down on the grass. Taking the 5 loaves and the 2 fish, and looking up to heaven, he gave thanks and broke the loaves. Then he gave them to the disciples, and the disciples gave them to the people. They all ate and were satisfied. And the disciples picked up 12 baskets full of broken pieces that were left over. The number of those who ate was about 5,000 men, besides women and children. So Jesus knew that these 5 loaves and 2 fishes were more than enough to feed this crowd of 5,000 plus people, because he touched it with that perspective of God's kingdom. He touched it with faith. He touched the food with that sense of abundance. He said, there's more than enough. There's more than enough love. There's more than enough of God's provision. There's more than enough love. There's more than enough grace. There's more than enough mercy for us all. They had more at the end than they had at the beginning. At the beginning, they had 5 loaves and 2 fishes. At the end, they had 12 baskets full left over. One of the versions of this, or one of the interpretations of this that discounts the miraculous, is, well, you know what happened. Everybody started sharing out of their lunch, and that was the miracle. How did you end up with 12 baskets full left over if everybody just shared what they had? The miracle was that Jesus blessed and he touched with the abundance of God, and there was no shortage. There was an abundance for everybody. We're going to sing